introductory video. I'd like to call the December 5th, 2023 meeting of the Buncombe County Commission to order. Thank you all for being with us this evening. Let's begin our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise and join us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, I'd like to read the ethics reminder to the board. In accordance with the code of ethics adopted by the board, all county commissioners have a duty to obey all applicable laws regarding official actions, to uphold the integrity and independence of the office, to avoid impropriety in the exercise of official duties, to faithfully perform the duties of the office, and to conduct the affairs of the governing board in an open and public manner. Is there any item on the agenda, the outcome of which would have a direct, substantial, and readily identifiable financial impact for any board member? Does any board member have a financial interest in any public contract coming before the board today? There being none, all board members have a duty and obligation to vote on any issues voted on by the commissioners at our meeting this evening. All right, we come to the consent agenda. Commissioners, are there any questions about any items on the consent agenda? Do any members of the public have any questions about any items on the consent agenda? Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda and to follow the remainder of the agenda as published?
So moved.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we now come to public comment. Let me read our procedures on public comment. The time limit for individual comments to the board is 3 minutes. You'll get an orange light when there's about 30 seconds left on your time and a red light when the 3 minutes is up. And we do ask everyone to please discontinue your comments after your time's up because we want to give everyone the same amount of time. All right, and we do have a sign-up sheet of folks who have come who would like to speak. There is a rezoning matter on the commission agenda this evening's the proposed Biltmore Farms rezoning. There is a public hearing specifically on that rezoning. So if you're here for that item, you should speak during the public hearing on the rezoning, which is early on our agenda, so we'll get to it pretty quickly. But I'll go through the list of folks who signed up for other items, and we'll go through all of those. And then if there's anyone who would like to speak during public comment who didn't sign up, there will still be an opportunity to do that. Okay, and if I mispronounce anyone's names, I apologize in advance, because that happens. I think the first person is Sean Brody. Hey.
Okay, well, thank you for the opportunity to address the commission. My name is Sean Brady. I'm the Vice President of Development at Commonwealth Development Corporation. We're an affordable housing developer. We have several projects underway in the Asheville area, and we're a recipient of AHSP funding. And I wanted to speak tonight in support of one of the new business items, which is the recommendation for properties to receive, developments to receive property tax exemption if they're affordable housing development and be able to use that full property tax exemption. There are several benefits I just wanted to bring to point out to the commissioners in this very challenging time trying to close affordable housing developments. Financing is very challenging right now. This recommended change by the committee and also by staff would, of course, encourage partnerships with nonprofits and for-profit developers. It would also result in less funding dollars needed for those qualifying developments from the AHSP fund, because the big benefit of a property tax exemption is it allows more loan proceeds to be carried, and therefore less AHSP funds are needed to fill the same amount of funding gap deficit. There's also, for properties in the city of Asheville, another benefit where the Luigi application for the property tax rebate would not be necessary, and so that would also help the city of Asheville out as well. And then, of course, finally, there's the issue of compliance with state case law precedent as well. This is a common practice throughout the state of North Carolina, actually throughout the Southeast. Commonwealth is a national developer, and we operate in numerous areas. But this is not a new phenomenon. This is has been going on all over the state. So anyway, just encourage you to consider adopting that recommendation. It would be very beneficial and would help, I think, expedite getting new affordable housing units under construction. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you. Gina Elrod.
Thank you. I'm here to represent your friends in Barnardsville at Big Ivy Community Center in the northern part of the county. One of the probably least wealthy areas. In the last year, Buncombe County has really come beside us and helped us through general services and Parks and Rec. We've been a community center for 50 years, but what we need now is some work on the swimming pool. A lot of our kids are being raised by their grandparents, and they're not going to go to summer camp this year. They're not going on vacation. Our pool is really what they rely on. And the repairs that we need are over $100,000, which is almost our entire operating budget for the whole year. It is a Buncombe County property, and I just wanted y'all to keep us in mind as we serve about 125 families each week through a food pantry, and we have about that many volunteers helping also. So it's a vibrant community. We probably have hundreds that come through the summer to enjoy the swimming pool, and we just hope that you'll consider funding part of these repairs for us. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Lisa Landis.
Hi, I am Lisa Landis, otherwise known as Glow Lady, GLOLADY. You can find me all over the internet. My topic, conspiracy to commit crimes against humanity. Landis versus Buncombe, NC government. We can all agree felonious crimes were committed while Buncombe County defended the innocence of Wanda Green and 5 John and Jane Does. Buncombe County was willfully blind, spending approximately $500,000 in their defense. Then 1 month after the dismissal in the Supreme Court, investigation was announced and cost the taxpayers another $500,000 to prosecute Wanda Green and the 5 John and Jane Does, whose crimes were escalating while Buncombe defended their innocence. Not investigating a valid complaint is treason against the oath of office. Rules of professional conduct were violated in the willful defamation of my personal and professional reputation, desecrating my religious practice, causing me harm, mental and emotional pain and suffering with no financial compensation, and loss due to the recklessness and intentional misconduct in Buncombe County official and unofficial capacity. If, but, therefore, Buncombe County taking away the people's voice, the People's First Amendment platform at WNC Community Media Center due to the corruption of mass murder and medical genocide has occurred. U.S. lawsuits worldwide and in the United States will prove of the global pandemic of an experimental vaccination that is a biological weapon. I know too many people who have had tumors, rapid cancer, and have died suddenly after receiving a vaccination. This is a spiritual battle of good versus evil. I can see that the World Economic Forum plays a part in Asheville and this 15-minute city. I can feel and hear Mother Earth crying. I will listen for your response in 2 weeks. And if not, I will be more than happy to list everything when I file against the bonds. You have a great holiday.
Okay, thank you. All right, Grant. Millen.
Hi, Grant Millen, longtime Asheville resident. I'm actually here to talk about the semi-quincentennial. Maybe someone in Buncombe has brought this up, but July 4th, 2026 is the 250th anniversary of the founding of the United States of America. And I've participated in some of the America 250 NC events, webinars, that the NC Department of Cultural and Natural Resources is putting on, and they are the committee for North Carolina. And there's a national committee that's been in action since about 2018. Emailed the resolution earlier. With the email had some background. I wish I could talk about this, just this in my 3 minutes. Needs people, I would say. Some partners coming in, saying let's start the commission for Buncombe County. I call it Buncombe-NC America 250. The dash saying we're connected to NC rather than a comma, we're in North Carolina. But I have to talk about affordable housing. I don't want to talk about my personal affordable housing story. It's stressful and it's discriminatory. It's scary to have to talk about your affordable housing stories and dealing with landlords, fraud landlord and homeowners association in my case. But you all are doing something. I happen to know about housing choice vouchers, and there's a WS story. Buncombe County considers incentives for short-term rental conversions to boost affordable housing. And I can tell you, I know that people with housing choice vouchers did not get the word on this. They don't know what the choice is. These 2 or 3 choices, 1 or 2 or both, not invited. Averill and her staff did not invite the people with housing choice vouchers to the table on whatever this is, because I was just looking at your Buncombe Affordable Housing Committee webpage, did not see anything about whatever this is. So I'll leave this. I look forward to coming back with some partners and talking about this. I think it's great. I think we need the inspiration, we need the hope, we need the vision. And I was surprised. I remember the bicentennial, and I think a lot of people will be surprised that our nation's 250th anniversary is right around the corner. We should make it a big deal. Thanks.
Okay, thanks. Rita Schneider-Katler from Our Voice.
Good evening, Commission. Thank you so much for having me tonight. I'm just here to thank you for your continued partnership with the Buncombe County Family Justice Center. Our Voice is one of the partners in that building, and we met with Avril, and we are just really appreciative of your continued support. We know that the CDC's most recent study that came out, the Youth Behaviors and Attitude Survey, which has been going on since 1991, it's one of the largest studies in our country. The most recent study that just came out, we found that we're having sexual violence among teenagers at an all-time high. So services are needed more than ever, and we're just very appreciative that the Commission continues to invest in our community by making sure the Family Justice Center exists and that it's funded, and we appreciate that continued support. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeffrey Barton.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Jeffrey Barton, President and CEO of Mountain Housing Opportunities. We were founded 35 years ago and have the mission to build and improve homes, neighborhoods, communities, and lives, and build hope and dignity in the people we serve. We're proud to be a frequent partner of Buncombe County across all of our affordable housing programs, most recently through a pilot in our down payment assistance program to help county employees afford a home in the community they serve. I deeply appreciate the board and your staff's bold efforts to make an impact on our community's deep affordable housing crisis. I'm here tonight to request your partnership in ensuring long-term affordable housing. Specifically, I'm asking that in addition to adopting the proposed Affordable Housing Support Program guidelines later in your agenda, that you also authorize staff to accept requests from eligible nonprofit owners of affordable housing to seek property tax exemption as allowed by state statute. Let me explain why. Currently, county loan agreements supporting the creation of affordable housing include a prohibition on pursuing property tax exemption. We know that as a community, we must invest in long-term affordable housing. So depriving eligible affordable housing properties of tax relief jeopardizes sustainable long-term operations. Operating margins have become thinner due to our capped rents not keeping pace with inflation, rising insurance costs, and other COVID-related impacts. MHO has invested significant resources into our properties to offset short-term losses, but this is not sustainable in the long term. Simply, these properties and the people that live there need your help. So what would be the cost to the county in foregone tax revenue? Approximately $50,000 per year. There are only 4 properties in the county that are subject to this tax relief prohibition. The total county portion of their tax bills in 2023 was $50,394. That's total, not per property. This $50,000 represents a negligible portion of the county's property tax revenue, but a very significant portion of these properties' annual operating expenses. These 4 properties provide an affordable home for 287 total households. One such property, Eagle Marketplace, is jointly owned by 2 local nonprofits, Mountain Housing Opportunities and Eagle Market Streets Development Corporation. And tax relief would make the difference between operating below the margin and at a just above break even. So as you move to approve the AHSP guidelines, please also authorize staff to accept requests to lift the prohibition on property tax exemption for eligible existing affordable housing properties. Thank you for your consideration.
Okay, thank you. All right, that's everyone that signed up to speak during a general public comment. Are there any other members of the public that would like to speak during this public comment period? Again, we will hold a public hearing in just a few minutes around the proposed property rezoning. Anyone else? All right, well, thank you to everyone who took time to come out and speak during public comment. All right, the next item on the agenda is the financial quarterly report for FY23 fourth quarter and FY24 first quarter. And Melissa Moore, our finance director, is here to help us out with this item.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
So my first presentation will be to review the end results for our fiscal year 23. So fiscal year '23 began July 1st, 2022, and ended June 30th of 2023. We'll review our major operating funds with general fund and solid waste fund. We'll look at our county capital projects, look at our investment portfolio, as well as an overview of the county's debt. We begin with the general fund, where we ended for fiscal year '23, looking at our revenues by type. So you'll notice in the graph that we have the different types of revenues labeled along the bottom of your graph, with each type of revenue containing 3 bars. Your first bar is going to represent your adopted budget for that type of revenue. The middle bar will represent the actuals for the actual revenue that we collected. And the last bar would represent the prior year for the same time period for the full fiscal year and for comparison's sake. So when we look at our year-to-date actuals for revenue for the general fund, our revenue was $399.9 million. This is a collection of 95% of our adopted budget, and it's 5.4% increase over the prior year. This represents an increase of $20.6 million. $8.2 million of that was an increase of over prior year for property tax. $7 million of that was due to our interest income for our investments. And the remainder of that was an accounting entry required by GASB 96 statement, which is your Government Accounting Standards Board, and that is in relation to your subscription-based IT agreements. Looking at our expenditures, I'll have 2 graphs. This one is representative expenditures by function. The following graph will be expenditures by category. So your year-to-date actuals for your general fund expenditures was $397.4 million. So it represents 94.4% of your adopted budget. It's also 6.9% increase over your prior year actuals. That represents a $25.7 million increase over prior year. And you'll notice the increase as you compare the different bars by function. $16.4 million of that is related to our salaries and benefits. This is driven by our cost of living increase, as well as some new additional personnel that was added to the budget for that year. $7.5 million of that increase over prior year is related to program support, mainly within our education support expenditure function. As we look at the expenditures by category, and we shift to kind of comparison of how the actuals compared to budget. We realized $23.7 million of budget savings, meaning that our actuals came in $23.7 million under budget. A little over $10.5 million of that was within our IT department, and not necessarily department, but it's the accounting entry related to the GASB 96 entry. So it's an accounting entry that offsets and reduces those expenditures. You'll notice that in the section for your operating expenditures. $4.9 million of that was in salaries and benefits. This is due to vacancies. Hardest positions to fill throughout this fiscal year were in paramedics and within our detention center. $4.8 million of that was program support, mainly attributed to health and human services programming. We look at the general fund and fund balance for fiscal year '23. Fund balance ended at a total of $126.9 million. This is an increase of $2.6 million over the prior year due to the surplus of resources. So we actually collected revenue in addition to the expenditures, the difference of $2.6 million. So we look at what the definition of fund balance is. It's an accounting term. It's the difference between your assets and your liabilities. So as we look at the different types of fund balance, the state defines 5 different levels of fund balance. We have non-spendable and restricted. Within an available fund balance that's represented here on the graph, there's your 3 additional categories, which are your committed, your assigned, and your unassigned. Where your committed fund balance, for example, would be like your encumbered contracts or purchase orders. so they're already committed. Your assigned, for example, would be the amount of the appropriated fund balance utilized and committed for the following year. So that leaves your unassigned. So within your available fund balance, the end result was 21.64 million or 86.1 million. I'm sorry, 21.64%, representing 86.1, I apologize, million. This is in relation to meeting the compliance of the county's fund balance policy, which maintains a minimum of a 15% fund balance. An additional fund balance policy relates to your unassigned fund balance, which is a component of the available fund balance. Your unassigned fund balance was 67.2 million or 16.89 million. Due to this percentage not exceeding 20%, it did not trigger a transfer to your capital fund. Looking at the end results for your solid waste fund for fiscal year 23, your revenue year-to-date collected was 12 million. This was an increase of 3.2% increase over your prior year, or about $400,000. This increase over prior year revenues a result primarily from your investment income. Looking at your expenditures year-to-date through fiscal year 23 for your solid waste fund is 13.6 million. This is an increase over prior year, about 2.1 million. This is due to the new debt service for the landfill expansion. As we look at the capital projects for fiscal year 23, this is a multi-year fund. Your life-to-date budget for all of the projects that had funding assigned to them and approved was 84.5 million. The life-to-date actuals against that budget was 40.7 million. What was actually spent within the fiscal year 23 was 8.9 million. This 8.9 million was spread across 24 different projects. 2.3 million of that was towards several different solar projects for schools and public buildings. 890,000 was to Woodfin Greenway. 517,000 was to the Register of Deeds building. 222,000 was towards Fleet and General Services Complex. Some of the other projects included parking lot renovations, repairs to libraries, and soccer complex improvements. Looking at the investment portfolio, the year-end results, the table on your left, the last two rows I'll be focusing on. Your year-to-date, year-end earned income, so this is your interest from your investments, totaled 7.1 million. We have 6.6 million of that from the first two columns there, which represent our investment pool. And we have two different ones, the North Carolina Capital Management Trust and the North Carolina Investment Pool. The assets under management total 183.3 million. You'll notice in the table over on the other side, on the right, total cash and investments is 295.2. So the total under investment represents 62% of our total cash available. So as we look at how it breaks down for our investment portfolio, both of our pool accounts just happen to have the equal same amount of 37% each, or a total of 74% of the cash, the county's cash within the pool accounts, and 26% with that under management of our investment advisor. So that would be 15% within U.S. Treasuries and 11% within federal agencies. So the table on the other side of the chart, so we're going to list the different types of return and by the different maturities. You'll notice the second to the last row has probably some of the most data that kind of gets me excited, is that we're seeing over 5% interest earnings. We've been not too long ago that we saw very, very low numbers in those areas. So it's nice to see that our reserves and our cash liquidity is actually working for us. So let's look at an overview of our debt. Current outstanding principal for all of the county's debt is $367.5 million. When you include the interest for that, it totals $455.9 million. So the pie chart shows you kind of how that debt is allocated. With our school funds, we have outstanding $162.8 million. Within general fund, $128.5 million. AB Tech is $52.2 million. Solid waste at $13.5 million. And Woodfin PDF is $10.4 million. The table on your right reflects all of the metrics that our debt management and policy requires us to maintain. You'll see that we're compliant with all of those metrics. The first metric really focuses on our capacity to issue debt. So we have a legal limit of 3% of our total assessed value. That would be assessed value on our property. Our current ratio toward that 3% is 0.71%. So that concludes my presentation on Q4 or for FY23. Are there any questions before I move to the next one?
Besides the kind of favorable status when it relates to interest income, are there any other things that you would just comment on as like this, this is a pleasant surprise, or this is raises any questions compared to, the general financial outlook that we're tracking along on?
I think that we hold a very strong balance sheet. Our liquidity is in a very strong position. We continue to maintain our AAA credit rating. I think as long as we continue to focus on long-range planning and ensure that we're able to fund all of the needs, that we're doing very well.
All right, I think we're ready for the next one then.
So my next presentation will represent the results for the first quarter of fiscal year 24. So first quarter of fiscal year 24 begins in July through August, September of 2023. So we'll review our major operating funds within general fund, solid waste. We'll talk about our capital projects as well as where we're at the end of the first quarter for our investment portfolio. So through the first quarter of the year, we're about 25%, well, not about, we are 25% of the way through the fiscal year. So as you think of the timing of seasonality of your revenue collections and your expenditures, you'll see a difference in how that seasonality impacts through the first quarter. So with the general fund revenue, our year-to-date revenue is $50.2 million. This is 4.5% increase over the prior year. You'll notice that we've only collected 11.5% of our budgeted revenue. So this is a great example of the seasonality of how our revenues at this time of year are lower than what you'll see in the next couple of slides for our expenditures. This is where we leverage that strong fund balance, our cash on hand, or our strong liquidity position. In the graph, you will notice in the second revenue type for our local option sales tax that we have a budget, but we don't have any actuals reported. You may recall that sales tax has a 3-month lag. So revenue is recognized from an accounting perspective at the time of the point of sale. So since there's a 3-month lag, a person will walk into a store or the point of sale 1 month. That business owner will then report to the state what those sales tax collections were the following month. And then a month after that, the state will distribute to all those tax proceeds to their taxing entity. So that's the 3-month state. So in Q2, you'll begin to see sales tax reported. It's not that we aren't receiving sales tax, it's an accounting entry. We look at our expenditures, year-to-date, $93.1 million. This is a 10.7% over where we were for the first quarter of the prior year, 21.4% of our budget expended. So we are tracking according to plan. So first quarter really doesn't give you a whole lot of information to really draw a lot of significant conclusions. You'll see in debt that you don't have any actuals. Your debt payments are paid quarterly, where you'll see those payments reported in Q2 and in Q4. So we look at the expenditures by category, where salaries and benefits are the leading portion of our budgeted expenditures. For your first quarter, we've expended 18.2% of the salaries and budget. So keep in mind, if you're trying to compare that to if we were right on track, we'd be at 25%. That's not necessarily true because we do have some annual payments that are coming out of that salary and benefits line item. Looking at our solid waste fund, revenues year-to-date for the first quarter are $3 million. It's 5.1% increase over the prior year. Fiscal year '24 was the adoption of the increased disposal rates for both the landfill and transfer station per ton. We look at expenditures year-to-date. Expenditures are $1.9 million. This is a decrease over what prior year expenditures were for the first quarter. This decrease is due to a lower amount of transfer to the solid waste capital fund. We look at our county capital projects fund for the first quarter. You'll notice that the life-to-date budget is $126.1 million, compared to my prior presentation where the life-to-date budget was $84.5. This represents all the additional projects that were added to our county project fund, adding $41.6 million. So for the first quarter, the actual expenditures were $3.5 million. $2.4 million of that expenditure was a transfer to the general fund to defease the debt service payments toward our 2015 limited obligation bonds. $464,000 were towards solar projects. $187,000 was to parking lot improvements. $119,000 was to a facility assessment. That $3.5 million for year-to-date actuals covers is spread across 17 different projects. We look at the results from our investment portfolio at the end of Q1. Total interest income is $1.7 million. The total balance within our pool accounts is $106 million. Total amount under investment is $153.6, or 57% of our total cash on hand. We look at the diversification of our portfolio. We have 30%, so just a little over 70% within our pool accounts. Still maintain similar percentages within U.S. Treasury and federal agencies. See an additional increase to our rate of return, over 5.5% on the short-term investments. When you reach the long-term investments, you'll see a lower amount. And we're still in the environment with an inverted yield curve, meaning your short-term interest rates are going to be higher than your long-term maturities. That concludes my presentation. I'll take any questions at this time.
Melissa, thank you so much for the presentation. I don't think there's any questions at this time. We appreciate all the updates.
I will be back at the beginning of February with your second quarter results.
Excellent, thank you. All right. The next item on our agenda is a public hearing to consider a property rezoning at Biltmore Farms. And Jillian Phillips and Nate Pennington are here to help us out with this.
Maybe.
There we go. Good evening. I'm here to present the case before you, ZPH 2023-0027. Biltmore Farms owns the property, and it's actually on Frederick Law Olmsted Way. So this hearing was properly noticed, and all applicable parties were noticed of the meeting in advance with general statutes and county code. This includes a legal ad, notices mailed to property owners, a notice on the county's website, and a physical posting on the site. So the applicant and owner is Biltmore Farms LLC. The property consists of 2 parcels, one unaddressed and fronting Brevard Road, and one off of Frederick Law Olmsted Way. This rezoning does not include the Pratt and Whitney site. That site is actually already currently zoned EMP. So regarding the property, the acreage to be rezoned is a total of about 760 acres. The property is currently vacant of development, and it is served by public water and sewer. So the application is to rezone the parcels which are currently zoned R3, RLD, NS, CS to EMP. And the portion down along Brevard Road that is currently zoned RLD, the applicant is proposing that that remain RLD. So really, the majority of the site is going to be rezoned to EMP, but that portion along the river is going to remain RLD. The property is also bisected by the Blue Ridge Parkway. And just a reminder that we do have a Blue Ridge Parkway overlay, which places additional regulations on the portion of the property which is within 1,320 feet of the Blue Ridge Parkway center line. So you can see the current zoning and then the proposed zoning. So this chart compares the dimensional standards of 2 of the current zoning districts and the proposed zoning. If the rezoning request is approved, the minimum allowed lot size with water and sewer would decrease. The required setbacks for the property would actually increase, and the maximum allowed height of the structures would increase. The types of uses allowed on the property would also increase. R3 zoning is primarily a residential district, but allows multifamily uses and manufactured home parks. NS is intended for limited neighborhood-oriented commercial businesses and service activities, and allows such things as kennels, medical clinics, and business offices. CS allows uses such as vet clinics, cargo terminals, hotels, manufacturing, restaurants, warehousing, and vacation rental complexes. The proposed zoning, EMP, is intended for a concentration of employment such as office uses, industrial uses, and wholesale trade. The majority of uses allowed in CS are allowed in the EMP zoning district. However, several industrial uses are allowed in EMP with a special use permit. Surrounding development includes the Biltmore Estate, commercial, office, industrial, and institutional uses, residential development, the Pratt and Whitney plant, and the property is bisected by the Blue Ridge Parkway and bordered by the French Broad to the south. So county planning staff recommended approval, and then the Buncombe County Planning Board voted 4-1 to recommend approval of the proposed map amendment. And at this time, I'll open it up for questions.
We are going to hold a public hearing on this in just a moment, but are there any questions for the planning staff at this time? Oh, it doesn't look like we have any questions right now. Jillian, do you want us to go ahead and open the public hearing, or are there any other presentations?
So the applicant is here, if you would like to hear for them, or if you have any questions for them.
Does the applicant wish to make a presentation prior to the public hearing?
I have a brief one, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Good evening, Chairman Newman and members of the County Commission. My name is Bob Ost from the law firm of McGuire Wood and Bissett, here for Biltmore Farms, which is the applicant in this rezoning. Also here with me is Ben T., who is the Vice President for Development for Biltmore Farms, and Lou Bissett, also of McGuire Wood and Bissett. I want to say thanks to Nate Pennington and Jillian Phillips and the planning staff for their thorough analysis and presentation and for guiding us through this process. Their report was, in fact, so thorough that it doesn't leave a lot for me to say, although I think the total acreage of the rezoning that we're requesting is 461 acres, not the, I think the 700 includes all the properties, but part of that is already zoned employment. But I do want to emphasize a few things. First of all, I want to talk about what this is not. It is, it does not include the residential low-density district along the French Broad River. It does not intrude on or reduce the Blue Ridge Parkway overlay, and it's not a specific development proposal. It's a general rezoning to the employment classification. Secondly, and most importantly, is the consistency with the comprehensive plan. Your newly adopted and award-winning comprehensive plan. The plan designates this area as mixed-use area 2. The general character description for that, it covers things like economic development, industrial manufacturing, medium-density housing, campus-style development. I'm not going to read all that, but the primary land uses include industrial parks, large commercial or business campuses, and manufacturing centers. The employment zoning district that's currently in your plan is the district that makes all of that, that best facilitates all of that. And that's why we're seeking the rezoning that we're asking for. And also want to emphasize that almost any development of any size in this area would require some form of more site-specific review. Under current Buncombe County zoning ordinances, a development of any size that could occur on this property will have to go through one of several site-specific processes, most likely a planned unit development, which requires a special use permit. And for those of you all who haven't had the pleasure of going through that process, it's pretty rigorous, requires a detailed site plan, and you have to meet several standards, and the board has to make several findings, the Board of Adjustment, that is, has to make several findings that are intended to ensure that the development will conform to the spirit of the ordinance and generally will not have any adverse, or at least minimal adverse external effects. And finally, as Ms. Phillips pointed out, this site has all that is needed to support the type of development that the EMP zoning classification allows, and the mixed-use Area 2 designation of the plan contemplates. So I would ask you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, to trust your plan, trust your staff, trust your planning board, and trust the process. You all worked a long time on this plan, long and hard. It's a good plan. All these things are designed to produce a good result. We'd ask you approve this, that you approve this rezoning. If you have any questions now, I'll be glad to answer them. And of course, we're here, Mr. Teague and Mr. Bissett, to answer any questions you all might have. Thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you, Mr. Ost. All right, we're going to go ahead and open up the public hearing on the proposed rezoning at 5:56 p.m. There are a list of folks that have signed up indicating their interest in speaking on the proposed rezoning, so I'm just going to go through the list of folks who've signed up, and then if there are any other folks who wish to comment, there'll be an opportunity to do so once I go through the list of folks who are on the sign-up sheet. So everyone who wants to speak will have an opportunity to do so. Let me just remind everyone that our policy is that there's 3 minutes for each individual to comment during public comment. You'll get an orange light when there's about 30 seconds left, indicating you have 30 seconds or so left to speak, and then a red light when your time's up. And we do ask that you discontinue additional public comment after your time's up, because we want everyone to have the same amount of time.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes, sir.
I've been told that there are some more public commenters in the overflow room. So can we ask the commenters, once they make their comments, can they leave the room so the other individuals can come in?
Sure. So just to repeat that in case people didn't hear, there are folks in the overflow room. So we would ask that once you've made your comments, if you wouldn't mind leaving so someone else can come in and be ready to make their comments too, that we would appreciate your consideration on that. All right, and I again apologize in advance if I mispronounce anyone's name who has signed up. The first person on the list is Claire Clark.
Good evening. My name is Claire. I'm an organizer for the Party for Socialism and Liberation, and I'm here to demand that you deny the current rezoning application submitted by Biltmore Farms, and that no further rezoning be considered until Biltmore Farms agrees to publicly disclose any companies targeted for recruitment and agrees that no more military industrial contractors will be brought to Buncombe County on Biltmore Farms land. In 2020, this board, and some of you sitting on that dais tonight, voted in an act of craven cowardice to fork over $27 million in blood money bribes to lure Pratt & Whitney and its parent company, war industry mega profiteer Raytheon, to South Asheville. This was done with almost no debate and precious little dissent on your part. Some of us warned you then and have warned you every day since that someday that decision made in our name but without the consent of the people of this county would make us all complicit in the worst atrocities of war, colonialism, and imperialism. Well, commissioners, someday is now today. As I speak, the fighter jets of the apartheid state of Israel, powered by parts made right here in Buncombe County by Pratt & Whitney, are being used to carry out a campaign of genocide and ethnic cleansing against the Palestinian people, the likes of which the world has not seen since the days of Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party. At least 20,000 Palestinians have been murdered over the last 2 months by the occupation regime, the overwhelming majority of them women and children. Thousands more lie buried beneath the rubble, and over 1.5 million Palestinian people have been driven from their homes in the besieged open-air prison of Gaza. And because of your decisions, Palestinian blood and tears are on the hands of every single person in this room, in this building, in this community. But tonight, ladies and gentlemen of the board, you have a rare and precious opportunity before you. You have an opening to learn from your mistakes and a second chance to make a first impression. You can either choose to listen to the people and meet our demands, or you can take the path of business as usual and rubber stamp a blank check to Biltmore Farms to bring 4 or 5 more Raytheons to our peaceful community. So I urge you to learn from the past. Say no, say not in our name, but I'm also here to serve notice that the people will no longer tolerate business as usual. If this board cannot find the courage and moral clarity to shut down the war industry in Buncombe County, then we, the people, will. So choose wisely, but know that no matter how you choose, we, the people, will not allow our mountain home to become an arsenal
All right,
of genocide.
Claire,
Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you so much. And I'm going to ask that folks, not applaud or boo or react to any speakers, whether you think you totally agree or you totally disagree. Our policy is that every person's going to have a chance to speak and not have to and say what they believe. Everyone's going to get the chance to do that, and we're going to respect that, right? So, thank you. The next person that signed up is Cody Codjoel. Hey, Cody.
Hi, my name is Cody. I'm an organizer with the Party for Socialism and Liberation. I want to start by stating clearly that blood is on each of your hands. While over $100 million in subsidies was given to build the Pratt & Whitney plant in South Asheville, a plant owned by Raytheon, one of the biggest war profiteers in the world and one of the principal companies arming the genocidal Zionist regime of Israel. While millions were given to fund the arming of this genocide, hundreds of people here in Asheville remain homeless. Land that could have been used to provide housing to community members in need will now be used to continue the illegal and violent occupation of lands in Palestine. Blood is on your hands, and now you wish to allow hundreds of more acres of land to no doubt be turned into a hub for the manufacturing of more devastation, destruction, and death. Shame on you. Where is your humanity? You have blood on your hands. Over 20,000 people have been brutally murdered in Gaza over the past 2 months. Nearly half have been children, all by weapons provided by U.S. weapons manufacturers. And instead of standing up and saying you want no part in this genocide, that you want to divest from the death of children, that you will not be complacent in the carnage. You are sitting here ready to sell your souls to the war profiteers, perfectly willing to sacrifice the millions of people in Gaza and the West Bank, perfectly willing to sacrifice the struggling people of Asheville and Buncombe County, your constituency, in order to build more factories that will fill the skies with bombs dropping on the beds of the innocent. Your hands are dripping with blood. We say no more. We will not allow ourselves to be drowned in the blood you have no problem spilling. If you are going to spend millions of more dollars, spend it on the working and poor people of Asheville and Buncombe County. Spend it on providing housing, healthcare, and education to the people that make our communities run, not on the companies who pollute and destroy our communities, who exploit our neighbors, and who kill our brothers and sisters in Palestine and across the world. We demand that you vote no to the Biltmore Farms application for rezoning, and we demand you continue to vote no at least until Biltmore Farms agrees that it will not bring in any more weapons manufacturers or anyone even remotely connected to war profiteers. We say money for housing and education, not for war and occupation. Free Palestine.
Okay, thanks, Cody. Next is Yasmin Dajani.
Hello, everyone. My name is Yasmin, and I'm here to urge this board to reject the current application for rezoning filed by Biltmore Farms LLC. Further, I call on the commission to refuse to even consider rezoning this land until Biltmore Farms enters into a community agreement to A, publicly disclose any companies that they may be considering for recruitment, and B, to agree not to recruit any more military industrial contractors to build on Biltmore Farms' owned land. I now invite you all to join me for a moment of silence and mourning for the more than 20,000 Palestinian victims of Israeli genocide for the remainder of my allotted time. I'm Palestinian, and I want to say that Palestinians are not collateral damage. Free Palestine.
Okay. Next is Meredith Jones.
Good evening. My name is Meredith Jones, and I'm here to urge the commissioners to reject the rezoning application submitted by Biltmore Farms. I call on the commission to refuse to even consider rezoning this land until Biltmore Farms enters into a community agreement to publicly disclose any companies they may be considering for recruitment, and to agree not to recruit any more military industrial contractors to build on Biltmore Farms' owned land. For the rest of my time allowed, I ask you all to join me in another moment of silence and mourning for the over 20,000 Palestinian victims of Israeli genocide and for the Palestinians who are still living through unimaginable fear and suffering as this genocide continues.
All right, thank you. I appreciate the sentiment that's expressed by the last two folks who participated in public comment. As the presiding officer of the public hearing, there I'm going to rule that if you're going to speak during public comment, you do need to be articulating a point. So if you stop speaking, I'm going to rule that your time's up so that we can move on to the next speaker. But I appreciate the sentiment of the last two people who commented. But that's going to be my decision as the presiding officer of this hearing. So the next person that signed up is Courtney Ratchie. Sorry if I mispronounced your name.
Hello, my name is Courtney Roche. As a 10-year resident of Buncombe County and also an organizer with the Party for Socialism and Liberation and a food service worker here in Asheville, I implore you to reject the rezoning application submitted by Biltmore Farms. We demand no further consideration of rezoning until Biltmore Farms publicly agrees to disclose the companies they are recruiting and agree to not recruit any more military industrial contractors. This rezoning would open up the area surrounding the already abhorrent blight that is the Pratt & Whitney facility to additional military industrial manufacturing and associated services. This direction for Buncombe County does not reflect the desires of the people living here. Just weeks ago, over 100 turned out to shut down the operation of the Pratt & Whitney factory. Pratt & Whitney supplies engine parts for the jets that are used by Israel to commit genocide against the occupied peoples of Palestine. We reject more development of the war machine in WNC, and we do not want to see these mountains once again run red with the blood of genocide and settler colonial occupation. This blood is on your hands and printed into your money, commissioners. So vote against the rezoning and take a step toward the right side of history. I now ask for a brief moment of silence where we will honor the more than 20,000 Palestinians murdered in just under 60 days, and then I will read a list of names of the children who have died under the age of 1 year old. Rayan Abdullah Zakaria Al-Astal. Mayan Yahya Youssef Al-Astal, aged 0. Salam Wael Ahmed Al-Astal. Zain Al-Din Suleiman Moin Al-Najjar. Yasmin Ramez Abdul Razak El-Masri. Maria Yasser Kamal Al-Masri. Aisha Jihad Jalal Shaheen. Rahima Saadi Mohammed Shaheen. Mohammed Mato Mohammed Abu Jazar. Tia Mamdul Mohammed Abu Jazar. Baha Mustafa Jamal Musa. Rakan Hassam Hussein Musa.
Okay. The next is Ken Jones.
Good evening. My name is Ken Jones. I live in Swannanoa. I'm here to speak, as you can imagine, against Biltmore Farms' request for a zoning change. This zoning change will allow for an AB Tech training center for jobs at Pratt & Whitney on the 108 acres of Tract 1 and for so-called spin-off industries on the much larger 345 acres of Tract 2. I assume that the phrase spin-off industries refers to the plans being made by the Chamber of Commerce and Biltmore Farms for more aerospace and high-tech industries that are part of the U.S. war industry. But we don't know for sure what Biltmore Farms has in mind for Tract 2. You commissioners should oppose a blank check for Tract 2 and require Biltmore Farms to disclose exactly what sort of development it is planning. No more secret deals and no more war industry in Buncombe County. As for the AB Tech Training Center, I recall that 3 years ago when this board was making its decision to grant Pratt & Whitney a $27 million tax incentive agreement, that only one of the 23 comments made at that hearing was in favor of the county subsidy. That was a representative of AB Tech. Why? Because AB Tech stood to profit from this agreement, and now this zoning request sets the stage for it to cash in on its support for Pratt & Whitney. I don't oppose job training for good industrial jobs. I oppose education for working in the war industry. By working hand in glove with Pratt & Whitney on this project, AB Tech has become complicit with the killing and destruction that Pratt & Whitney engines enable, as we now see every day in the genocide happening in Gaza. The engines for the F-16s and the F-35s being used by Israel are made by Pratt & Whitney. I say no to preparing workers for such murderous war profiteers. Commissioners, I call on you to send this zoning request back to the Planning Board, require that the 2 tracts be split into separate rezoning requests, and require that the Tract 2 request specify what kinds of development Biltmore Farms is planning. In addition, this board should immediately enact a moratorium on any economic development in this county that works with the war industry. Let us all take a stand for peace as our country continues to support genocide and endless wars. We can have more and better jobs by saying yes to businesses that address the climate emergency, our real problem in this country and in this town, such as developing clean energy and transportation. Insist on a peaceful, just, and sustainable future for us, our children, and our grandchildren. do not approve this zoning change proposal as it now stands.
All right, next is Melody Shank.
Hello, my name is Melody Shank, and I live in Swannanoa. This morning, as I was scrolling through my Facebook feed, I came upon this quote: "What you allow is what will continue." You are allowing, actually making happen, a project that I commend you for, the Ferry Road housing development. From the presentation that I watched today, that of your briefing in November, it looks like you are thoughtfully planning to provide mixed housing in a community with plenty of green space and amenities. As you noted, with the use of county-owned property, you hope to lead by example, and I thank you for that. Today, you have the opportunity to lead by example on another matter. You have the obligation to either allow or not allow something to continue. If you approve Biltmore Farms' application to rezone 451 acres to an employment district, the bulk of which is currently zoned for residential and neighborhood services, you will likely set into motion the expansion of industries connected to the war industry, spin-off industries of the Pratt & Whitney plant, as the application materials state. Those of us who have watched and, yes, opposed the building of the Raytheon division in our area knew this day would come when initial steps would be taken for further development by Biltmore Farms. Biltmore Farms claims in the application that they don't have a specific development for the site in mind, but do you ask for a rezoning without a potential project in the horizon? And we know that at least Jack Cecil thinks of Pratt & Whitney as a anchor store. I'm not actually opposed to the Track 1 rezoning if it's for the siting of AB Tech training. I'm a former high school counselor, and I know how important job training and development are for young people. But I'm not really that supportive of a company-specific or war industry-specific training center. I have to wonder, though, why Track 2 is lumped into the application with Track 1. Track 2 currently zoned for residential and is currently zoned for residential and neighborhood services. It could be your example and provide a second mixed income residential development, a community with green space and ample neighborhood services. How lovely it would be if there were more livable communities that were near protected outdoor spaces like this one would be. We need affordable housing in our county. I know it, you know it, we all know it. So today I ask you to deny the rezoning request, to not allow what is likely to continue an expansion of the war industry in Buncombe County, but instead, in your rejection, to keep Track 2 as it is and allow the expansion of livable and affordable communities in our county. Thank you.
And Craig.
Hi, I'm Ann Craig. I've lived in Buncombe County for 45 years. I've also been a public school teacher and a co-founder of 3 schools that are still in operation in our county. And I'd really like you to listen to those young people because they are our future and they know the stakes. The stakes are the survival of the human species. I'm asking you to deny the rezoning request application by Biltmore Farms. I understand that at the October 16th Planning Board meeting, when concerns were raised about how the rezoning could impact the Blue Ridge Parkway and specifically the French Broad Overlook, the lawyer for Biltmore Farms stated that there currently are no specific plans for the development of the parcels. I am suspicious of the claim that there are no specific plans for the development. Given that the conversations and agreements to bring the Pratt & Whitney plant, a subsidiary of major weapons contractor RTX, formerly Raytheon, to the area, had gone on secretly for quite a while before the public had any idea about it, I'm inclined to believe that Biltmore Farms has a pretty clear idea of what kinds of industry they want to recruit. In the last couple of years, I tried to meet 3 times with representatives of Biltmore Farms to express concerns about future development post-Pratt & Whitney, only to be denied a meeting. Our rapidly growing area is in need of affordable housing, climate change mitigation infrastructure, and employment opportunities in fields that promote education, sustainable energy, food production and transportation, pollution control, environmental protection, healthcare, and other life-affirming professions. Industries that base their profits on the promotion of war and destruction, as we are seeing now in Gaza and the Ukraine, should not be recruited to our community. Surely, commissioners and Biltmore Farms have sufficient vision to see this. Since business as usual in North Carolina includes tolerance and even support for secret deals, remember Project Ranger, that may be objectionable to a large segment of an informed community, I do not think granting a rezoning request is in the best interests of our community. Please vote to deny it.
Next is Sonia Boozy or Bozy.
Good evening. My name is Sonia Bozic. I'm a college student in Buncombe County, and I'm here tonight to urge this board to reject the current application for rezoning filed by Biltmore Farms LLC. Further, I call on the commission to refuse to even consider rezoning this land until Biltmore Farms enters into a community agreement to 1, publicly disclose any companies they may be considering for recruitment, and 2, to agree not to recruit any more military industrial contractors to build on Biltmore Farms' own land. Despite my advisor's recommendations to practice my senior research presentation tomorrow, I am here because thousands of Palestinians are being murdered as I have the privilege to receive my degree. None of us are free until all of us are free. I fear that this rezoning act will act as Pratt & Whitney have. Pratt & Whitney, owned by Raytheon, contributes to the production of F-35 fighter jets, the very aircraft used by the Israeli Air Force to drop bombs and white phosphorus onto homes, churches, temples, olive trees, schools, hospitals, bakeries, and people in the West Bank and Gaza. These F-35 fighter jets are equipped with engines manufactured by Pratt & Whitney, which has a production plant through taxpayer subsidies in so-called South Asheville that is built on stolen Cherokee land. So I ask you, what do you value? Where is your humanity? Where is your heart? There is blood on your hands. There is blood on your hands. With such ease, you give land to a war machine. Yet the Reparations Committee in Asheville, North Carolina, has been working for the past 2 years since Asheville City Council promised Black people in Asheville reparations in 2020. Part of that is land back. Yet you want to give past this bill to continue building on stolen Cherokee land. How can you give hundreds of acres of land to a war machine, but lack giving land back to Black people and to indigenous people? From Cherokee to Palestine, occupation is a crime. Buncombe County, can't you see, Palestine will be free. I would now like to take a brief moment of silence for the more than 20,000 Palestinian victims of the Israeli genocide for the remainder of my time.
As I mentioned earlier, we're not going to, if you're done speaking,
Thank
I'm gonna
you.
call the next speaker. Thank you. Safa Alam.
Good evening. I'm here to reject the current application for rezoning filed by Biltmore Farms. I call on the Commission Board to refuse to even consider rezoning the land. I'm coming today for the board to hear the people. I have lived in Asheville for my whole life, for 20 years. I grew up here. I thought I knew this place well. But really, I've been seeing how much you have been hiding for years from us. You hide Pratt and Whitney in the mountains. You hide the fact of what Biltmore Farm is actually going to do with their land. With the ongoing housing crisis, the city of Asheville continues to fund everything but what the people need. We are standing on Cherokee land. We are standing on stolen land, and yet Asheville continues to run from the history and the truth. And you continue to give land to military industrial complexes such as Pratt and Whitney. Instead of giving land to people of your own city who deserve their land back, or creating a space on this land that actually benefits the community, specifically the people of color in this community who have struggled for years on years. The Black community, the indigenous community, and the Hispanic community have been repeatedly pushed out and displaced. Rather than having affordable housing on the land you claim to have, you give and fund a warfare machine. With the ongoing genocide currently taking place in Palestine, I'm here to say no. No to war crimes. I won't stand for my own city that I've been in my whole life, that I thought I could trust, to be complicit in the war crimes. I'm going to read some names of the children who have passed away and have been martyred in Gaza. Lion Mohammed Yusuf Hussan, Ghazal Assad Mar Abu Lash, Shah Mohammed Salih al-Sawala, Mohammed Basil Mohammed al-Kayat, Adam Magdad Jabir al-Do, Adam Mohammed Samir Abu Aja, Jala Mon al-Harki. These are all names who are under the age of 1. These are children that you are currently funding the genocide of these children. 20,000 Palestinian people have passed away. When will it be enough for you to say no more? I say no more. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next is Rebecca Moskowitz.
Good evening. My name is Rebecca Moskowitz, and I'm here to urge this board to reject the current application for rezoning filed by Biltmore Farms, LLC. Further, I call on the commission to refuse to even consider rezoning this land until Biltmore Farms enters a community agreement to A, publicly disclose any companies they may be considering for recruitment, and B, to agree not to recruit any more military industrial contractors to build on Biltmore Farms' owned land. I moved to Asheville in March. I am from North Carolina, born and raised. I have grown up knowing the realities of what it means to be a Hispanic person here in the South. And I have witnessed atrocities over atrocities every time I go on my phone. Every morning I wake up to see what is happening in Palestine again. As a child, I was shielded from the atrocities being committed. And I ask you all to just look inside yourselves and try and understand that nobody is coming for you specifically. However, when we fund war criminals, we have to be held accountable. And when our tax dollars go to fund war machines, we hold ourselves accountable too. And this cannot continue to go on, especially without everybody knowing. A lot of us are just everyday people. I just go to work and I just want to live a normal life. And to find out that the money that I work hard for goes to something like this while I cannot sleep at night because I don't know what is happening, it's scary. And as a young person who barely makes ends meet, it's really hard for me to understand why someone like me has moved 3 times since I've moved to Asheville because I cannot find affordable housing, but we continue to give large sums of money to create war industrial complexes. Thank you.
Rachel Bliss.
Good evening, commissioners. I come as an old person. As a proud resident of Buncombe County, but a mourner because wars are ravaging our planet. I come here today to oppose the proposed change of zoning for the Biltmore property. We taxpayers and neighbors of the property that would be rezoned have an obligation, as do you, elected commissioners, to secure all, I repeat, all information regarding spin-offs that are being considered as companies who would manufacture here. As far as I can tell, that information hasn't been presented during this entire rezoning application process. You, our ears and our eyes of what this county will stand for, are not sharing with us all you know. If you don't know, then deny this vote on this important decision. Give AB Tech what they were promised in one of the tracks, where a new building can hopefully be used to train the students to build for good, not destruction of other humans who are no threat to us. This track 2 must be denied at this time until the public, your constituents, know what companies want to locate here and what they will build. I repeat, what will they build? You hold the keys to Buncombe County's future. Let's plan for life here by building more housing and associated businesses, not huge boxes where killing machines are manufactured. No more secret deals, no more incentives. Buncombe County is out of balance on its financial systems, I believe. Vote no for track 2, delaying it until when full details are released to the general public. I'd also like to add that this rezoning decision has come about very quickly. I mean, this meeting tonight, this application, was about a week after it went to the Board of Zoning. So I think we know what is in plan.
Lisa Alport.
Good evening. I'm here to talk to you about our reputation. Asheville is getting a very bad reputation. A reputation of a city that doesn't take care of its own citizens or the land upon which we dwell. A reputation of a city that sells its land and real estate to the highest bidder with little to no consideration for the community about which it impacts. That's why we're all here tonight. Despite the fact that 3 years ago, it was made very clear by the citizens of Asheville that we do not want to allow the continued war machine to have residence here. But here we are, once again, to speak out against this violence. Pratt & Whitney seeks to expand their war machine, and I am disgusted and dismayed that this conversation even needs to take place. Asheville is in the midst of a housing crisis, as my friends and neighbors have mentioned. It is a crisis that has been perpetuated by greed. Greed that has driven unregulated rent and housing costs. Homelessness has increased by 20% within the last 2 years. Small businesses are continually being pushed out of the city or going into bankruptcy because they can't afford to do business here. We cannot be complicit to this tyranny. Allowing weapons manufacturing in this county would make Buncombe County guilty of aiding and abetting violence. This is not what the people of Asheville or Buncombe County stand for, and we don't want this reputation. The approval of rezoning this 450-plus acreage from the residential and businesses that would allow the expansion of Pratt & Whitney is degrading the survival of our community, and to support this would be an act of violence to our community and an act of violence to innocent people around the world. This cannot occur, not in our name.
Okay, Mimi Healy.
Hi, my name is Mimi Healy. I live in Buncombe County and I work for the Costs of War Project at Brown University, which researches the unacknowledged costs of the post 9/11 wars. I'm in echoing a sentiment that you've heard a lot tonight, and of course we must continue illuminating the horrific genocide occurring in Palestine, but this also involves decades of war, centuries of war and empire building by the US. And I'm here echoing the sentiment again to urge this board to reject the current application for rezoning filed by Biltmore Farms LLC. But up front, I'd like to just share some statistics about the impact that companies such as P&W's Raytheon have had since 9/11. The U.S. post 9/11 wars have directly killed nearly 1 million people, and that's a very conservative estimate, and have indirectly killed 4.7 million people. This is not including wars outside of the post 9/11 scope in which the U.S. has had a hand in, such as the genocide in Palestine happening by Israel right now. Counterterrorism has been incredibly unproductive. Since 9/11, the number of terrorist attacks worldwide per year has increased 5-fold. Our research has found that the post 9/11 wars have displaced over 38 million people. That would be 140 Buncombe counties. The U.S. Department of Defense is the largest institutional consumer of fossil fuels in the world and a key contributor to climate change, largely due to the weapons that this zoning proposal would fund. Huge military burn pits throughout Iraq and Afghanistan and elsewhere poison the ground, air, and water, killing untold numbers of livestock, contributing to thousands of children being born with life-threatening birth defects. Military jet fuel in the water neurologically damages thousands of people and creates unbearable skin diseases. These causal pathways continue to grow. Turning to economics, corporations have been by far the largest beneficiaries of the post 9/11 military spending. Pentagon spending has totaled over $14 trillion since the start of the war in Afghanistan, with 1/3 to 1/2 of the total going to military contractors, one of those being Raytheon. They're one of the 5 largest military contractors to produce weapons of mass destruction. Our research has found that much of this money has gone to waste, fraud, and abuse. This exorbitant spending has furthered the spread of U.S. empire and imperialism worldwide, while crushing the possibility to fund social services, contributing to true human security and well-being, including investments in infrastructure, healthcare, education, and emergency preparedness. Note the global horrendous response to COVID, especially in the U.S. Our research has found that the total budgetary cost of the post 9/11 wars is $8 trillion. To put this in perspective, this could have housed every single homeless person in the U.S. and ended world hunger, hired over 1 million elementary school teachers, powered every household in the U.S. with solar energy, and much more. I'm here to echo something that Mahatma Gandhi has said. I'm almost done.
Your time's up.
And he preached nonviolence.
Your
and said
time's up. I need to ask
nonviolence
you to
is
stop speaking.
the greatest force at the disposal of humankind. I hope we can continue this.
You need to
choice
stop speaking or you're going to be asked to leave. Thanks. George Perkins.
Hey y'all, I'm just someone who grew up in a small town in Texas, surrounded by manufacturing on one side, railroads on the other. Whenever you agree to zone for industry, what you're doing is agree to have your water and electricity taken from you. It requires obscene amounts of resources to maintain industry, and it's gonna be our poorest community members who are gonna be most affected by that. They are gonna need so much fresh water to run these things and hundreds of thousands of kilowatt hours of electricity that Duke Energy is gonna have to burn more coal to produce. All of that, when you zone for industry, which Biltmore Farms claims they have not planned anything yet, so saying everything's above board, even then, That means there's gonna be more air pollution. That means there's gonna be more fresh water taken. We're gonna be in dire straits no matter what. And if as many people's sentiment has been here tonight and as was expected from Biltmore Farms LLC, it means that we're gonna lose all those resources and hurt our poorest community members to build things that hurt people on the other side of the world, as we were seeing in Gaza and the West Bank. I just ask that you think about what it really means when you zone for industry. It means you're zoning specifically to allow large-scale manufacturing, which requires resources that are a little obscene. And we don't need to get rid of what green spaces we have in Asheville. It's one of the biggest benefits of the city is that we are right by side nature at all times. Let's not hurt that just to get some money. I genuinely think that we should put our community first. We should put our green spaces first, and we don't need more industry in Asheville. Y'all showed your yearly budget. You're doing freaking good. We don't need more money. We need more connection, more hope, less harm. And I beg, I plead that you don't take what few resources we have and pollute our air for our families and community members who have almost nothing to begin with, and even our ones who have everything, to potentially add to, as many have said tonight, a war machine. I hope that's not it. I hope Biltmore Farms is being honest. We all know that industries are rarely above board all the time, though. It's not profitable. And I really just hope you listen to everyone here. You listen to your hearts, and you do the right thing by our own community and the communities around the world. No more harm, no more pollution, and a little more love. Thank you for your time. Free Palestine.
Clark Duncan. And Clark is the last person that signed up, so if there are other people who would like to speak on the proposed rezoning who have not already spoken, after Clark speaks, there'll be an opportunity.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, always a privilege to be with you. So I began my day actually this morning with a tour of the Gladfelter facility, the former Jacob home in Inca. And it was a great reminder, a timely reminder of the careers and the people and the products that are driving wage growth and economic mobility here in Buncombe County. As I recall, and many in the room may recall, nearly 20 years ago when this company initially committed to the former 2,000-acre site, then derelict site of the American Inca facility, they catalyzed a transformation. Inca today is an economic corridor for Buncombe County residents, employing thousands in high-wage careers, not only with Gladfelter, but Southeastern Container, Freudenberg, TSA Choice, Sonoco, Hakon Industries out of Canada, New Belgium Brewing, and even our own hometown, Wicked Weed. This success was the result of years of planning and investment and partnership, led by this commission in partnership with our EDC, with AB Tech, with state and federal agencies, and residents that value the common good and the economic well-being of our next generation. Today, there are but 3 building sites, 3, left in Inca. The economic future of our region and the vitality of our families and the continued growth of income and opportunity here in Buncombe will require that same spirit of partnership, continued investment in the talent and skill of our people through our public school systems, through our cherished AB Tech and our university systems, but it will also require exactly the kind of acreage that is before us tonight. Speaking plainly, there's no other site in Buncombe County, and I'm safe to say in all of Western North Carolina, that offers the centrality, this infrastructure, interstate access, this abundant power, water, sewer, gas, workforce density, and of course, proximity to the county's milestone investment across the river in workforce housing on Ferry Road. Density belongs in our urban center, and economic development and high wage employment needs of our community make this a compelling case for rezoning. I'm really pleased to advocate for this change. I applaud the vision of the County Commission in building an economy strong enough to support our next generation. Thank you for your time.
All right, other folks who have not spoken yet, I'll start over on this side, and you can go first, and then Claire, I'll go to you next.
Good evening. I'm Cassandra Dayton. I'm a resident of Buncombe County and an American citizen and taxpayer. I'd like to acknowledge, first of all, obviously I'm here in the same sentiment as everybody else. Us American taxpayers have blood on our hands, dripping down onto our wrists, and we can wash ourselves with clean water and go to bed at night, but at the end of the day, the blood is there. I'd like to read a poem by Courtney Hartman. I wash my hands and watch good, clean water pour into the drain. I put away leftovers and 2 bags of groceries overfilled, gluttonous. 4,824 children killed, and still I am watching wide-eyed. Motionless. Motionless children with dimples and shining eyes. Children young enough to dream. A child who was learning to crawl last week. A child who rescued her kitten. A child who lost his first tooth, tucked it safe into his pocket. A child who could make her sisters laugh. A child who could learn how to write her name, who played violin, who helped fold the laundry, who gripped his grandmother's hand. A child who carried water and who loved the sea. A child trying to braid her own hair, growing out of his shoes. A child who stopped having nightmares. A child who knew how to comfort his brother. A child still growing in the womb. A child hungry for anything. A child falling asleep. A child nursing, grinning in the dark as her mother weeps and sings. I'm here tonight to urge this board to reject the current application for rezoning filed by Biltmore Farms. Further, I call on the commission to refuse to even consider rezoning this land until Biltmore Farms enters a community agreement to A, publicly disclose any companies they may be considering for recruitment, and B, to agree not to recruit any more military industrial contractors to build on Biltmore Farms' own land. Free Palestine.
All right, Claire, you're next.
Okay. Hello, Commissioner Newman, the rest of y'all up here. In 2020, I spoke before a virtual meeting of this commission. I spoke against the millions in subsidies to P&W and Raytheon, but it seems you had already made up your minds. Today, I speak against this rezoning proposal, particularly the set-aside of hundreds more acres of precious land for so-called spin-off industries. As we can see in Gaza and in other wars too numerous to recount, the spin-off from the U.S. weapons industry is death. The only winners are the weapons makers. Certainly not the children of Gaza, the old and infirm, the parents with no time to grieve, as the bombardment from the F-16 and F-35 jets continue, with parts made here. These are crimes against humanity. These are war crimes. This ecocide in a time of climate catastrophe and this genocide in an era of endless wars must stop. You must not approve any further enabling of this militarism. Do not turn a deaf ear to the cries of those under bombardment, as our president has done, and do not turn a deaf ear to those of us speaking tonight. And I forgot to say, my name is Claire Hanrahan. I've lived in this wonderful community for close to 35 years. I'm a gardener, I'm a grandmother, I'm a continual activist against war. I'm 75 and I'm not giving up. Have a good night.
All right, thanks, Claire. Yeah, you can go next. And we typically do our public hearings for 1 hour on a topic. We're at about 50 minutes. It looks like there's quite a number of folks who haven't spoken yet. So I'm going to ask that we reduce the public comment period to 2 minutes so that we can hear from everyone who wants to speak. I'd also like to ask folks to remind you to just share your name and where you live at the beginning of your comments. Thank you.
My name is Giselle. I live in Buncombe County, and I work as an industrial manufacturer who sat unemployed for months because I was unwilling to be directly complicit. I would like to say I am here to ask, when is enough? How many lives lost, monuments lost, memories lost, bloodlines ended will be enough? I know it is the nature of genocide, though, to not stop until there is nothing left, which is why Biltmore Farms is now asking for this zoning change to grant Pratt & Whitney deeper purchase into our community, in turn, further extinguishing vibrant communities of Palestinians and beyond. It is direct correlation. It is blood on your hands as the ones who open the door to it, and blood on our hands as taxpayers. When the sky over Palestine lights up with airstrikes, do you feel proud? Do you feel anything? Surely you must know this is wrong. What inhumanity lets you carry on not horrified by this endless slaughter? Is this why Biltmore Farms' plans for spin-off industries are allowed to remain undisclosed? If you are ashamed of the lives and histories you are extinguishing, you must stop hiding. You must stop helping. We the people do not stand with you. Putting aside the guaranteed pollution, traffic, further exploitation, is this infrastructure, like development built on slaughter, really worth it to you? Perhaps the same way a holy land built on a mass grave is, huh? If you wish to care for our community, do so with funding for housing, schools, transportation. We the people do not stand with you. No zoning for war industries, no complicity in genocide. Free Palestine.
All right, who else? Sure, go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Talis Montero. I'm a citizen of Buncombe County, and I'm here to continue to urge this board to reject the current application for rezoning filed by Biltmore Farms LLC. Further, I call upon the Commission to refuse to even consider rezoning this land until Biltmore Farms enters into a community agreement to A, publicly disclose any companies that may be considered for recruitment, and B, to agree not to recruit any more military industrial contractors to build on Biltmore Farms' owned land. Thank you.
All right, who else? Yep.
Hello, my name is Taylor Mason, and I'm here tonight as well to urge this board to reject the current application for rezoning filed by Biltmore Farms LLC. Further, I call on the Commission to refuse to even consider rezoning this land until Biltmore Farms enters into a community agreement to publicly disclose any companies they may be considering for recruitment, and to agree not to recruit any more military industrial contractors to build on Biltmore Farms' own land. Pratt & Whitney, owned by Raytheon, contributes to the production of F-35 fighter jets and the very aircraft used by the Israeli Air Forces to drop bombs onto homes, churches, temples, olive trees, schools, hospitals, bakeries, and the people in the West Bank and in Gaza. These F-35 fighter jets are equipped with engines manufactured by Pratt & Whitney, which has a production plant through taxpayer subsidies in South Asheville. This means that our city is directly involved in the creation and distribution of machinery that's used to carry out the killings of thousands of people in densely populated areas of Palestine. I urge you not to recruit any more military industrial contractors and to prevent the spread of military industrial complexes here in Asheville, please.
All right, who else? Yep, come on up.
Hello, everyone. My name is Alex Severa. I live in Buncombe County as well. I am an organizer with the Freedom Road Socialist Organization and Students for a Democratic Society. I want to say, as the leader of the UNCA chapter for the Students for a Democratic Society, I want to say that not only you have failed the young people of our community. I am comfortable saying that the student community here in this city not only stands affirmatively behind and for Palestinian liberation, I also want to say that they are appalled and disgusted by the actions of this council today and on previous days. To vote for this, to allow this redistricting will be another nail in the coffin of any trust and any trust that a student community and the young people of this nation and our community have in their elected governments and have in the governmental process. I want to say further that you have made further enemies in the same way that every time another house is flattened in Gaza, 1,000 resistance members are born. I want to say that the voting for and allowing this redevelopment, this rezoning to go through, you will create further enemies in your community. I will not speak for anyone else, but I know for a fact that I will spend the rest of my life, I will give every ounce of energy I have to fight against not only this rezoning, but the continued murder and slaughter that is committed on our name and committed in our tax dollars. Free Palestine.
Sure, you. Yep. No, there's a, yes, you, and then the person who just stood up, you can go after, okay?
Hello, my name is Ari. I'm a resident and a constituent here in Buncombe County. I am standing in opposition to this zoning. I believe that most of us, if not everyone here, has gone to the parkway at least once to breathe the air, to look at the mountains, to see the hawks and the vultures and the bears, and all of the lovely creatures that live there. This zoning a plant or a factory would wreck that, whether or not, regardless on the bore machine. We go to breathe the air. I don't want to hear the sounds of jets and the smog that factories bring when I go to the parkway, and I don't think anyone here would like that either. I don't think we want to bring war and pollution and all of that here to our mountains. All of us here obviously deeply care about community. We want what's best. I am a civil servant. I work every day trying to ensure housing for the populations of Buncombe County. We need parks. We need housing that's close to these parkways that we can live and breathe in clearly and play. And I don't think that these factories are, the intentions that Biltmore Farm has for the zoning are true to the beliefs of the people of Buncombe County and the constituents here. Have a good night.
Hello, my name is Oliver, and I am here tonight to urge this board to reject the current application for rezoning filed by Biltmore Farms LLC. Further, I call on the commission to refuse to even consider rezoning this land until Biltmore Farms enters into a community agreement to A, publicly disclose any companies they may be considering for recruitment, and B, to agree not to recruit any more military industrial contractors to build on Biltmore Farms' own land. You are in a very privileged position. Please use it responsibly. Thank you.
All right, can I see a show of hands of folks who have not spoken yet and wish to? Okay, all right, we are at an hour, but we're gonna let every person speak who wants to speak. I'm gonna ask you to limit your comments to 1 minute. So start over here. Yes.
Hi, my name's Grace Barron, and I've been an Asheville resident for coming up on 18 years. I just wanted to point out the sound that you've been hearing outside all night long, which is other folks in your community who are telling you that they don't want you to go through with this rezoning. They were denied entry here, so even though my time's being limited now, there's so many other voices that you haven't heard tonight. And that's very similar to the way you bypass the will of the people by putting this project, the Pratt and Whitney plant, there in the first place, behind closed doors. But you have a chance to make a different decision tonight as we all mourn the genocide that's going on in Palestine right now with machines that are manufactured here, right here in our community. Meanwhile, the family that owns this property is hoarding their wealth while our children are hungry and our neighbors don't have places to sleep at night. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, who else? Go ahead.
Hello, I am Wilos Green. I live in Asheville, North Carolina, and grew up in a conservative town called Salisbury. I am here to speak on the rezoning. As you have been made aware by us and swept under the rug by yourselves, the rezoning is to include Pratt and Whitney, which produces the F-35 fighter jets that Israel is using to murder innocent lives in Palestine, as well as Saudi Arabia and Yemen. We share this planet, in case you forgot. By funding this fascism, you are obliterating our home piece by piece, nuke by nuke, innocent life by innocent life. Considering your financial report, there is much debt and many, many expenses that go into keeping this city afloat. I urge you to use that money for nurturing our community and our surrounding neighbors near and far. The future holds many possibilities of true solidarity and coexistence, but because of projects and money that you so carelessly send to power-hungry people of power, we are nowhere near that. When we look into our histories and speak of Nazi Germany, we cry for the loss of Jewish lives. We cry for the loss of many lives throughout history. Be on the right side of history. Use your heart.
All right, thank you. All right, who else? Yeah, you come up, and then you'll go next, okay?
Hello, my name is Sebastian Colette. I've lived here for this entire millennium so far. That's 23 years. First, I want to thank you for your patience in listening to this long line of speakers, and I hope that you've taken what we were saying to heart. I'm a homeowner in Asheville, and I've paid taxes to the county, which I now regret, knowing that they may have gone to incentivize and subsidize the building of weapons manufacturers. I'm also a former professor at AB Tech, and I'm horrified and ashamed to think that my former employer training students to produce tools for mass murder and genocide. With all the urgent crises in our world today, including climate disaster and the need for immediate investment in alternative energy, the need to eliminate poverty and homelessness, access to universal health care and food equity, etc., surely there are many more socially helpful careers that we could be training our young people for, rather than antisocial or, in truth, sociopathic production of tools for illegal wars, a job which, in addition to its enormous destructive impact around the world, will also give these student workers PTSD and nightmares for the rest of their lives.
Right. Oh yeah, come on up.
Hello, my name is Dylan Walker. I'm a student at UNC Asheville, sorry. I just want to say that in the time I've taken U.S. history, I've learned that our country is full of mistakes that we've made, and it's up to us to learn from those. This might seem like a relatively inconsequential thing, but in fact, the world is watching, and this will shape our future. It's also worth noting, that almost all of us here have shared one unified voice. The young, the old, everywhere far and wide in this county all believes the same thing, and we wish for you to do the same. Thank you.
Okay, who else? Yes, you, and then the person next to you next, okay? No, no. Keep coming. The people in the back. You two will go next, and then you can go after them, okay?
Hi, my name is Grace Henson. I've been a resident here for about 3 years, and I'm here tonight to urge this board to reject the current application for rezoning filed by Biltmore Farms LLC. Further, I call on the commission to refuse to even consider rezoning this land until Biltmore Farms enters a community agreement to A, publicly disclose any companies they may be considering for recruitment, and B, to agree not to recruit any more military industrial contractors to build on Biltmore Farms' owned land. Since October 7th, we've witnessed more loss, violence, pain, and fear than any of us could have ever imagined. There's a genocide happening, and if you agree to accept this rezoning application, you will continue funding it. Do not look away. The blood is on your hands. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kit Crabtree. I've been a student at UNC Asheville for 3 years now. I would like to call all of you to reject this proposal. And I would like to look at all of you now and say, I hope if you choose not to reject this, I hope it keeps you up at night for the rest of your lives. And I hope when you go home and you hug your children and your families, you think about the children and families who are being bombed right now, and you hold your children closer, because you have the power to stop people from dying, to stop money from going into this war machine. And I hope you make that choice. And I can tell you that this whole city does too. And you just do the right thing, please. Free Palestine.
All right.
Hello, my name is Grant. I am a student at UNCA, a member of UNCA's SDS, Students for Democratic Society. I am a senior, and I want to talk a little bit about home. I'm originally from Chapel Hill, but Asheville is the first place where I felt at home in my entire life. This city is the only city I feel patriotic for, the only city I love, and this city is complicit in genocide. This city has approved the building of a factory that is producing jet engines for F-15 and F-35 fighters that are dropping bombs on Gaza and murdering children, the youngest who haven't even hit their first birthday. I am here to urge you to vote no on this application that Biltmore Farms has submitted for rezoning. A vote yes for this application is a vote yes for genocide.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Free Palestine.
Okay. All right. Who else? Anyone else? All right. I'm going to close the public hearing at 7:10 p.m. And I want to thank everyone who took time to come speak during the public hearing. Nate or Jillian, is there anything else that the staff have to share?
No, we'll be available for any questions. We'll be sitting right here.
All right. Commissioners, are there any questions about the proposed rezoning?
I think I did just have one for Nate or Jillian, whoever's closer. Regarding the Blue Ridge Parkway overlay, I remember being on the planning board when we worked on that. There's a 1,300-foot from center line buffer. Can you just remind us all what that means and what kind of
I've got
limits
that
or
right
buff-
here for
Yeah,
us.
yeah.
So we have had the Blue Ridge Parkway overlay for quite some time. Asheville has a mirror image of it. Essentially, just to give you the Reader's Digest version of it, it limits setback height, and it has buffering and screening standards. The provisions of the parkway overlay itself shall apply to all properties within 1,320 feet of the center line of the Blue Ridge Parkway overlay, so about a quarter mile going out on each side. For instance, to tell you the effectiveness of the buffer itself or the overlay itself, the Pratt & Whitney facility is not visible from the parkway. That is due largely in part to the way the parkway was well designed historically. Sometimes it sits in a chasm. There are a couple of areas throughout Asheville we've all driven. You can see the interstates. There are just a couple of areas where you can get peaks of development, but the urban interface when it comes to the parkway can be tricky at times.
All right, any other questions? For a motion? All right, I'll make a motion to approve the rezoning. Further discussion? And I guess since I made the motion, I'll say a couple of things. This is this is just a proposed straight rezoning, and the obligations of local government whenever we consider any rezoning of property. This may sound like a very dry answer, but it is literally our job when it comes to making these rezoning decisions is to look at all of the permitted uses that are allowed under that zoning category and to decide whether.
Free Palestine!
All right.
Free
Palestine! All right.
Free Palestine! Free Palestine!
All right. We're gonna take a 5-minute break. All right. We're gonna take a 5-minute break. There's a motion and second on the table in support of the proposed rezoning. And I'll just summarize my comments by stating that our comprehensive plan and our county's economic development policies do rightly emphasize the need to support manufacturing as a key component of our economy. And it is the sector of our economy that produces the highest wages in our community. I think when we have all gone out, we have all stood for election, and we listen to the community in a variety of forms on a continuous basis. And one of the most fundamental things we hear from our community is that they don't want Buncombe County to become a place where regular people cannot afford to live here. And affordable housing is certainly a major part of that, and we are investing significantly to address that. But even more fundamental to that are whether or not people can find good paying jobs. And wages in Buncombe County are below the state average. And a lot of that is because the tourism sector of our economy produces a lot of jobs, but a lot of them are below, do not pay as well. And a lot of people say, I do not want Asheville and Buncombe County to just be a purely tourism town. We need a diversified economy. So we need places where we can develop manufacturing. And this is a logical place for that. So for all those reasons, I support the proposed rezoning. Any other comments or from the commission?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Thank you. All right. The next item on our agenda
No report.
is the county manager's report.
No report.
Okay.
No report, sir.
Okay. No items under old business. All right. First item under new business is consideration of the selection of the vice chair. Shame on you. For 2024. Terry Wells has served as the vice chair this past year, has done a fantastic job. Thank you, Terry. And so we need to select a vice chair for the coming year.
Well, thank you. It's been my pleasure, and it's my honor to nominate Commissioner Sloan to serve as vice chair for this coming year.
All right, there's a motion and second for Parker Sloan. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Parker, how did you vote? Oh, you voted aye. Okay, just want to make sure we got that in a minute. All right, great. Okay, the next item is consideration of the Affordable Housing Services Program revisions.
Good evening, Jonathan Jones with the Community Development Division. Thank you for the opportunity to share some of the proposed revisions for the Affordable Housing Service Program. As you know, the Affordable Housing Service Program is our primary mechanism for addressing the needs of affordable housing in our community. That targets increasing the supply of affordable housing opportunities and those for homeownership, especially for BIPOC households. The program is also intended to preserve the supply of naturally occurring affordable housing. And we also want to address homelessness and ensure that all of the voucher resources in our community are being utilized. The program has two main offers, and that is a loan component and a grant component. Loans are offered to support construction projects and down payment assistance, and grants available for nonprofit partners who are providing rental assistance, emergency repair, new start programs, new initiatives that support affordable housing, as well as administrative support. So in advance of our upcoming application cycle, the Affordable Housing Subcommittee has reviewed a number of proposed changes to the program, and so I'd like to walk through some of those with you. The first would be some updates to the program's existing preferences. Right now, projects receive a strong preference if they can leverage other resources to make the project viable. They accept vouchers. And so we've also added another preference, and that would be for projects that are willing to accept referrals from the continuum of care to house households that have been experiencing homelessness. We've also added an energy and stewardship preference, and the goal there would be to support projects that include renewable energy systems, include installation of all-electric appliances, participate in energy efficiency programs, that kind of thing. So we have expanded those preferences a little bit. Also looked at increasing the available loan structure for construction projects. Currently, the primary loan limit for a construction project is 10% of the cost to produce an affordable unit. There is a provision to increase that limit to 20% of cost for a project that's seeking 4% tax credits. There's also another opportunity for projects to request support or a loan that exceeds that 10 or 20% limit if they are supporting households, if they are targeting households at below 30% area median income. The proposed loan change limit would be to also allow projects that are including those energy stewardship elements in the project to exceed the 10 or 20% limit, similar to those that are targeting 30% AMI households. So any projects that included on-site renewables, participation in the leadership in environmental and energy design, that is LEED certification, or follows the Department of Energy's Zero Energy Ready Home program. And the important part is to emphasize that they would have to demonstrate that the costs of participating in those programs or installing those systems would justify the increased ask that they would be proposing. We've also recommended some changes to the requirements of the program. That is, as we continue to hear from community partners and households that are trying to connect rental vouchers in the community, that they're trying to get units or use those resources, that they're having trouble connecting with landlords that will accept those vouchers or rental subsidies. So the provision here would require that programs that are supporting rental projects would be required to accept those vouchers and other rental subsidies, and would be prohibited from excluding or disqualifying tenants based on sources of legal income. We've added a revision to the requirements, and that is, in the past, projects were prohibited from seeking tax exemption from real estate taxes, and the provision has then changed to say that projects that would be eligible to seek that exemption must seek that exemption. And the strategy here would be to free up some of the operating costs from that project and allow them to secure more funding from other sources. They could support more debt with the tax exemption, with the funds from a tax exemption. Looking at the administrative revisions, we've also made a couple of clarifications in the policy as we work with partners, making sure that they are serving eligible households, those that are at 80% or below of area median income. We want to make sure that they are maintaining relevant and recent documentation. So we are requiring that they would have those documents updated at least every 12 months. And as applicants apply and begin to deliver their project, that they are keeping up with the HUD income, rent, and home sales limits that are published each year, which are the basic guidelines that the Affordable Housing Service Program follows. And then for next steps, we would be going into the application cycle for fiscal year 2025 coming up, and so the approach here would be to release an application on December 11th. And this year, the window would be a little shorter. The applications would be due a couple weeks earlier, January 26th. That would allow staff more time to analyze those proposals, reach out to applicants and clarify any questions, so that we could provide recommendations back to the Affordable Housing Committee in spring in preparation for the budget approval process. So the request for action would be the approval of the Affordable Housing Service Program guidelines with the provisions.
Commissioners, any questions?
I actually do have a question, and I'm sorry I did not catch this previously. On the tax exemption, we're saying must apply. So does that mean that every project has to apply for the tax exemption? Do we want to give them an option, though, and say may apply, might apply? I'm not sure if every project, every developer is going to want the tax exemption. I don't want to force them into something that they may not want or need, and just changing that verbiage just a little bit.
So based on the way the tax exemption is structured, they would have to have a nonprofit partner involved with the project, so that might not apply to all of the applicants. So a for-profit developer who may not be partnering in that way would not have to seek that.
But also a nonprofit would not be obligated to apply if for whatever reason they just didn't want to.
So the way that the language is structured now, they would be required to.
Right.
But that could be an option.
And that's my question, and I guess concern heading into this is, do we want to force every project to have to apply?
I agree.
And go through another process if they don't need to or don't want to? Can we change the verbiage to make it optional? To may, yeah. I think that's grammatically correct. They may apply.
Okay. They would be permitted to apply for that, but would not be required.
Because I think the slide says must apply. We could say may apply, which then makes it optional.
I'm just curious, was there some reason staff chose to use the word must?
Primarily for consistency, so that as applicants were submitting their information, there was some consistency in making sure that they were pursuing all the available resources. And as they are seeking that tax exemption, for every dollar in tax exemption, based on the current loans available, interest rates and terms, every dollar in tax exemption translates to about $9 to $14 in other sources and loan that they could attract, other funds. So we would be making sure that they are pursuing those other sources and potentially reducing the amount needed to close the funding gap by the county.
My question is, when we look at the other side of this, how much will we lose in the future in property taxes? Could we be tying the hands of future commissions?
I'm not sure about that provision in the sense of tying future commissioners.
I'm curious, yeah.
Well, and it is a state law, right, that allows the nonprofit affordable housing developers to do this. So basically, we're just saying you can do what the state law allows. In the past, the philosophy was if you're going to request funding from the county, then we want you to not apply for that exemption which you qualify for under the state. And honestly, our committee's gone around and around and around on this. And I think eventually just kind of landed on the, it's just actually a little bit easier to just let the county kind of be consistent with the state policy. We do lose a little bit of tax revenue, but we also don't have to put quite as much money into the project. So I think it's kind of six half dozen the other from a county investment standpoint, but it sort of simplifies it by just making us sort of consistent with the way everybody else is doing it. This is sort of my take on it.
I guess for me, commissioners, the only thing would be it's coming from the larger pot. So you reduce your intake of revenue for your property taxes versus giving out more in your affordable housing services fund. So it is taken from one pocket or the other, but the flexibility where you may or must would be, I think, where staff will land as well.
That it's okay to be flexible and say you may be.
You may,
versus
right.
There may be some small projects or something where honestly just like the
Yeah.
trouble of going through the process may not
They
be
wouldn't want to
worth
do
it,
it.
you know?
It's small.
Versus the mandatory, that would be the only thing.
Okay.
Question.
Yeah, good thought.
Thank you. Sorry I didn't catch that sooner.
And thanks for answering my question, yeah.
Yeah.
You understand.
And while you all are discussing, because I'm sure you all put a lot of thought into this, and I'd just like to hear more about the project preferences, because I think that's important just for the community to know why we're adding those. Yes, the updated project preferences, those two items.
What now?
It's about the being preference given for the continuum of care.
Yep.
And the renewable energy.
Yeah, so I think I think on the continuum of care, then, and that's basically just saying that new affordable housing developments that provide spots for people who are experiencing housing insecurity or homelessness, that's viewed as a favorable characteristic. And then doing renewable energy or energy efficiency or anything really above what's just required by the state building code, nothing's required. But again, we're just saying if you include those elements in your project, then we see that, we view that in a favorable light. So it's not a mandate, but it's just sort of signaling to folks that that's something that our community cares about it and ultimately makes the developments more affordable in the long term by helping to make them less energy wasteful, having high utility costs for the tenants. So that's, I think, what, and we've got a few things in here we sort of want to try out this year, see how they go. We're not kind of committed to them yet, but there's some things here that we want to see how developers respond with some of this, letting them know these are things we'd love to see, but we also don't want them to, blow up the economics of these developments either, so. Yeah. All right, any other questions or motion?
I will move to adopt, with the friendly amendment proposed by Commissioner Edwards, I will move to adopt these revised AHSP guidelines.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. Next item, resolution regarding annual examination of bonds. And Michael Frew will present this item.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. There's a general statute that requires the Board of Commissioners to review the bonds of the tax collector, finance director, register of deeds, and the sheriff in December of every year. What we did was I asked Kelly Houston to send a memo to each of those public officials on their bond and just simply ask, has there been any change in the last year, any material change in the last year in the information that you filled out on your bond? So the answer was no, there was no material changes. There was a change, it's very minor, change of an address and the number of employees supervised. That information was communicated to our insurance underwriters and no changes to the bonds are required. So we would just ask the board to approve the resolution as presented.
Motion to approve the resolution regarding the annual examination of bonds.
Second.
All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you.
Commissioners, before you move on, just for clarity on the last item we just voted, I hate to go back to it, but on the affordable housing, the changes that we made, that was for FY 2025 going forward. That was the request from staff, and I just want to make sure that we were clear on the timing of that. We had a comment earlier today about going back.
The retroactive?
Yes, and I just wanted, the request from staff is for FY 2025 moving forward, so I just want to make sure we were clear.
Based on the staff report.
Thank you.
Budget amendment for Inco Recreation Destination TPDF Fund.
Good evening. So this budget amendment accepts a grant award of $750,000 from the TDA of funding for the Inca Recreation Destination at the Buncombe County Sports Park to complete additional restrooms and other amenities. So the grant match has already been budgeted. The total budget for the project is now $13,484,226. So this is to accept and allocate this grant and amend the grant agreement with the TDA.
And John, can you just clarify because the grant that they just received from the Tourism Product Development Fund was a little over 4 million.
This is a prior grant. This one was awarded this spring, summer, and now we're bringing this forward now.
We don't have the documents on the 4 million yet. We'll bring that forward later.
Okay. And so you just need a motion to approve the budget amendment?
Yes.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Right. Budget amendment for DWI Task Force grant.
So this budget amendment accepts a DWI task force grant from the Governor's Highway Safety Program in the amount of $154,481 to assist in funding 3 deputy positions to conduct law enforcement activities regarding impaired driving. The county has already budgeted a 50% match for this grant.
If there's any discussion, I'll move that we approve the budget amendment.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Budget amendment for DOJ accreditation grant.
The Sheriff's Office has been awarded a Department of Justice grant of $249,835 to fund an accreditation manager and associated operating expenses for 2 years. This requires a match of $49,996, which will be transferred via cross-functional line item transfer from the sheriff's operating budget to interfund transfers to initiate the match for a total of $299,831.
I move to approve the budget amendment and the addition of 1 grant position.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. Commissioners, 2024 meeting schedule.
If I may, Mr. Chair, at the last meeting or briefing, we had a discussion about the schedule. I just wanted to bring to attention the March 5th date is the primary, and just wanted to make sure that you were okay with having a meeting that day, or did we need to move that to another date? I think, you know, we do it for November for the general election, but we wanted just to make sure that there's consideration for the primary election.
We may want to move it, is my sense. You know, because if there's people running for office, like, it's the most important day, right? And so I just think that we should shift it, just for the same rationale as the other day. So,
The Thursday, similar to what?
want to go to Thursday that week instead of Tuesday? Well, if we need to set the schedule tonight, do we need to set the schedule tonight?
You can come back in.
We could come back to this in January. We would know, and it may be that it's a non-issue. If we could do it in January, then, or we could just move it. I mean, it's no big deal.
Yeah, I would say it's more consideration for staff who'd be working that day, so they can vote more than candidates, for whatever that's worth. I hope, yeah.
All right, who, show of hands, who would prefer to go ahead and set it tonight? Who would rather do it at the first meeting in January?
So are you saying we can adjust it in January?
I'm saying we could just defer this item until January.
So, and what I will do, this is a complete schedule. And so if we want to hold off, which is fine, I already have the January 2nd meeting on the calendar. But if we want to hold off, we'll just be holding off approving the whole schedule. So it will be up to the board's discretion.
I'm fine going, to me, I would think we should move it regardless of what's going on. But, all right, all right. All right, let's move, we're going to move it to the 4th.
Okay. So to
To
the,
the-
to the 7th?
To the Thursday.
You want
To
to
the
move it
7th.
to the 7th?
This Thursday, March 7th.
So I will have this at the January meeting on the consent agenda, just to approve the whole entire schedule, and I'll have that
Sounds
date
great.
changed.
Approving it tonight, but just that change.
Yes.
Yep, sounds great.
That works.
Yeah, it is. It's election day. There's a lot going on that day. Like having meetings all day here just doesn't seem like the right. Go ahead and do it
Yeah, okay.
right now. Okay, I make a motion that we approve the proposed meeting agenda, but the March 5th meeting is moved to March 7th.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Board appointments. Health and Human Services Board,
I move that we reappoint Stephanie Stewart Bostic.
Second.
all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Home and Community Care Block Grant Advisory Committee. I move that we reappoint Daniel Bierman and Susan Scheimer.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, reports from boards and commissions. Any updates anyone would like to share?
Sure, and this might be helpful, just to send out to the entire board. We had a great presentation at JRAC, Justice Resource Advisory Council, on some data surrounding what was happening with respect to downtown initiatives, the jail, how that impacted the county, and what trends we could glean from that. We are going to be following up, had some discussion about having a steering committee structure that has not been put into place yet, so sorry for spoiling DK. But I do think we'll be having some productive conversations with all our partners here. And I think if staff hasn't already, I'll just go ahead and forward to all of commission. It's probably on the website for Justice Resource Advisory Council, that we can see the trends ourselves and maybe get a quick rundown in advance of our next presentation from the sheriff that will inform some of the questions we had today.
Great. Anybody else? All right. On a couple of announcements, January 2nd at 3 p.m., the commissioners will hold their briefing meeting at 200 College Street, room 326 in downtown Asheville. January 2nd at 5 p.m., the commissioners will hold their regular meeting at 200 College Street, room 326 in downtown Asheville. We do have a need for a closed session. Mr. Frew, would you explain the purpose?
Yes, sir. Need a motion to go into closed session pursuant to General Statute 143, 318, 11A5, and that's to discuss the price and other material terms of a proposed real estate transaction. We need direction from the board. No action taken in open session.
Okay.
Move that we go to the closed session?
Yep. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?